Vuyo, as we hear now the breaking news that the conference is adopting the credentials. We were just speaking earlier on about how this has dragged matters on. What is the state of play as we speak?
Well, indeed, from what we hear at SABC, that credentials report has been adopted. It confirms in part what we're talking about in the last hour, and that is the issues that were raised by ANC NEC member and national organizer Mvoko, who told us, speaking to Bongi Wazwane earlier, that some unfortunate incidents had happened. The case of the Free State, where someone or one of the delegates came and grabbed the access cards of the rest of the delegation and ran away. It was an incredible story. I must say, I still haven't recovered, from that. But that has made it into the credentials report that we hear has now been adopted. Not too many issues are being raised in that report, frankly. It goes back to some of the very same issues that Mvoko spoke about in that interview with Bongi earlier in the day. They're talking about this new system that they've had to adopt, which they say has been a good thing for the management of this process. However, its introduction has meant delays. Its introduction has had teething problems, and for the kinds of numbers that the ANC has had to deal with at this conference, it has posed quite a number of problems. We are, of course, going to interrogate those issues and what, of course, needs to happen next. And here in studio, I do have with me analyst Dr. Fikile Vilakazi, as well as Professor Lesiba Defu. Good evening to both of you, and thanks very much for joining us. Of course, the adoption of credentials now means that next they can look at some of the constitutional amendments that they want to, or other people hope will be approved by this conference, because within those amendments are such issues as perhaps having two deputy secretaries, having a deputy treasurer general, and so on. So they need to adopt those, if conference agrees, before they can actually move to nominations. Let's begin with the process that Natasha and her guests were talking about. Intense lobbying now that people are going to nominate office bearers. Intense lobbying behind the scenes. We heard from that interview, Natasha's interview, that Limpopo's delegates had just been told by their provincial leaders that, hey, we've now got to change tune. Desperate measures, Prof?
Oh, I was looking at her because I was trying to run away from that question. But anyway, here we are. Good evening to you and the listeners. Look, intense lobbying. Let me just start off by saying we are where we are precisely because of the unconstitutional Electoral Act. Were it not for that, then people would have been here sent by their own constituencies, not by the political parties, right? Now here is a delegate. There are about 400 of them there. Somebody just come to say, guys, now you are no longer going to sing hymn X, you are going to sing hymn Z. And theirs is not to ask why. As the Church of the Light Brigade, theirs to follow, if needs be, even to die without questioning that. There is what I call majoritarian tyranny and political, party tyranny. Because this is now the tyranny of the party, where the people cannot decide for themselves in the name of democratic centralism. For months, we have known they've taken a position. By the way, for those who might have forgotten, out of the blue and uncharacteristic of him, the Premier of Limpopo just said Ramaphosa must get the second term. That was in February. 12 months down the line, I hear from the fellow here, from the gentleman, that he's nowhere to be found, and he's the one who must be making the pronouncement. He must first, right, the charge and tell them, this is the position and why is it so, and who's taking that, because it is, I'm told, it is the branches that govern in the ANC. Now here are the branches, and they are not supposed to govern. And somebody is dictating for them the line of march. It is unfortunate, and I keep saying it's because of the anachronistic and unconstitutional Electoral Act, because the people would be saying, as Mr. was saying there, I am mandated by my people back home, I'm here accountable to them. Nobody can tell me I must change what they've advised me to do when I arrive here.
What are things going on, Doc?
Vuyo, I woke up this morning and I wrote a piece about the dangers of democratic centralism within the African National Congress. And now that I'm hearing this, I'm actually thinking also about the hypocrisy of democratic centralism, right? Why is it now that Limpopo is not towing the line, right? Why is it now that the PC is suddenly having power to decide to tell delegates that now you are going to vote Dr. Zweli Mkhize? So that's the level of hypocrisy that you see in this principle of democratic centralism, where they say you toe the line, but actually it is selective. It's applied selectively. Some people toe the line, they're punished, and some people toe the line, it is ululations. So that's the one thing I want to point out. But also, secondly, it's just a question of numbers, right? I think even as Limpopo is now rising to support Dr. Zweli Mkhize, there's still a lot of work that I think the supporters of Dr. Zweli Mkhize have got to do, because they would still need to get, for example, Eastern Cape, because it still has got the highest numbers towards President Cyril Ramaphosa. They would still probably need to galvanize other smaller supporters like your Northwest and perhaps Northern Cape, right, to be able to galvanize. Otherwise, I think that President Cyril Ramaphosa still stands. But I mean, besides all of that, this is just how politics is. You can never know where you stand. It's a dirty game. The whole lobbying process has revealed that. And Vuyo, we also have been hearing on the pipelines that a lot of probably buying votes has been happening last night, and there's that, and there's been issues leading to this conference around the conduct of delegates not to buy votes and so on. But we have been hearing, from the pipelines that that has been happening. Who knows? Who knows? The question is, has Limpopo been bought?
But you see, for me, I mean, the issue, this actually goes to the heart of one of the key main, what do I call them, ambiguities about this whole process leading up to this conference. You always get told that the power lies with the branches, that this is a conference of branches. And that is why in the last while the ANC has moved to ensure that about 90% of your voting delegates are actually straight from branches. It was to strengthen or to give effect to that saying that a conference of the ANC is a conference of branches. So it was an attempt to then give them more of a say. But in the run-up to this conference, you then also heard people say, if a province decide at its conference that the majority say we will support candidate A, then that's what the province must now do. Now, it sounds to me like a contradiction, because on the one hand, you're saying this is a conference of branches. So whoever has been delegated by their province, their branch, to vote for whatever, that's the mandate they carry all the way to the national conference. But you started hearing people saying, no, once the PEC pronounces based on what the majority of branches would have said in that province, then that's the line. That's the line now that hypocrisy is being exposed here right now, because what we've just said about from Limpopo, in my view, exposes that hypocrisy problem.
Yeah.
But you can't on the one hand say this is a conference of branches. So the mandate of the branch, because what the majority of branches should say here, that should prevail. If you stick, you know, to that rule. But now, I mean, lately we've been told that no, it's what the majority in the province would have said, and that everyone in that province should then come here and vote.
Yes, it's regrettable, but not surprising. They are not known for consistency. Neither are they known for respecting their own decisions, policies, principles, and values. Yesterday, they told me there is democratic centralism. Once a position is taken, you cannot deviate from that. Come 2022, now they say you can vote as per your conscience. Remember, Madam said then, once the decision is taken by the ANC,
This is Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini.
Correct. That's what she said.
You told the lie.
You told the lie.
Yeah. And then she did the opposite.
She did the opposite recently. But I don't fault her, by the way. It is consistent with how they behave. And I must tell you, what she did, according to me, was correct. When there is variance between your conscience and the policy stance of your party, your conscience takes precedence. When there is a conflict between the constitution of your party and the constitution of the state, the constitution of the state takes precedence. They must learn to respect the laws of the land and their own laws, but their laws are subservient to or second to the laws of the land. What are we teaching the children? What are we teaching the people there? But let me make this point, Vuyo, with greatest of respect. I look at the caliber of the caliber of the delegates, and I say to myself, some of them, they can't even read one paragraph of the official documents that are written in legalese and political jargon. They can't even tell just one paragraph and explain what it really means. And I don't blame these people. I blame those who send them, because they can't question, they can't interrogate, they can't even open those documents, by the way, right? But these are the people who must decide my future, because the ANC is the one in charge of the state now. And when other people begin to question us, how else have you reached to this point where you can send these people to come and make such critical policy decisions? I respect them. Some of them, my brothers, my sisters, my mothers, and so on. But there are certain things that they can do and they are good at. But in this area, a certain level of education, political knowledge, political literacy, conscientiousness, public spiritedness, those are the characteristics or the traits necessary when you choose who's going to be deployed to go and represent you, so that he or she can make a meaningful decision, an informed decision when he says, I vote X or Z, and I vote this policy or I don't vote for this policy. I may sound crude, but if we don't talk about this in ourselves, that the caliber of the candidates that are here, a good number of them, they can't read these documents. They cannot. Even if we were to walk them through the whole morning, they would still not comprehend the jargon and the concept used. Yet they must decide for the 60 million people out there in the name of the African National Congress. There are better men and women out there in terms of a level of political consciousness, literacy that could have been deployed. But maybe they are not that pliable, because you can't call them and say outside the bus, now the line of march has changed, because they are going to question you. And Hans Karl Marx said, it's to the advantage of the political elite to keep the masses less educated or uneducated, because then there won't be a problem to you. They will be docile. You can manipulate them.
I'm trying to think of, what a conflicted Limpopo delegate, must be saying to themselves or thinking now about how they're going to vote. Let's just for a second assume that, no money exchange hands, which is a big factor in this conference. I mean, the ANC has said as much.
Yeah.
You know, every organizational, every political report has admitted to that.
Yeah.
But let's just assume that no money exchanged hands. But here's a young, very committed ANC cadre who left home with a mandate, and they knew exactly how they were going to vote when they got here. But now stands in front of a Stan Matabata who says, you've got to change your vote. And they supported the view they left home with. In other words, they're determined to execute, you know, the mandate they left home with. But now he's looking at this guy whom he says, or he regards as a tried and tested member of the ANC, a leader he has been looking up to all these years, who now says, forget what you are told at home, or the mandate that you can, I'm saying to you.
Yeah. Vuyo.
Take the M3, as the phrase went.
Exactly, and then that's what actually towing the line means. It means that you actually have to submit to instructions of that kind. And being a delegate of Limpopo at this hour where we are, the conference is heading towards a finalization of nominations. They must be feeling a sense of betrayal. They must be feeling. Confused, Vuyo, but also angered and betrayed, right? To say, what now? How did this happen? How is it that we're just waking up to this decision that we are being told what to do? And that's exactly what this democratic centralism is about. I mean, you would recall what Umamankosi Dlamini Zuma mentioned here, to say there is no problem with democratic centralism in as far as, to an extent, that it must be respected for what it is, where it allows debate, where it allows contestation to happen when a decision has got to be made. But in this particular case, clearly there is no open space for contestation. There is no open space for people to air their views. The Limpopo members of branches who came here with an understanding that they're voting a particular candidate, we're not given that leeway to say, can we contest this possibility? Yes, in a conference of this nature, you get to lobby one another. You get that horse trading that happens, right? But branches, I think, also need to be given that. If this is really truly a conference of branches.
Should we sugarcoat this and call it horse trading?
It is horse trading.
Probably. Where the problem starts. I think we should call it something worse than that, because that's what it is. It's wrong,
it's selling out. It's selling out,
I think calling it horse trading sort of contributes to its acceptability, or acceptance rather.
Actually
so that it lands kind of softly, and it's not exposed for what it is. Ironic. This all is, Prof, that only yesterday in his political report, ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa spoke about renewal, and how renewing this movement means taking it back to its original or its founding values. Surely we can call it horse trading, but in my view, it is not taking the organization back to what it was meant to exist for.
Yeah, look,
because you are going against something.
Yeah.
The people you come here to represent. Because remember, that delegate represents a branch. It's a number of people.
Exactly.
And those people decided that this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So you, when you get to conference, tell them that this branch wants so and so. And you get to conference, someone tells you to do the opposite.
It's dictatorship. Vuyo, Prof and Vuyo, I have been saying that to an extent also this is a case, Vuyo, of some kind. You cannot have a repeated practice of this nature, expressing itself in the manner that it's doing in the ANC. It's deliberate, but I also think there's an element of where we see an organization that has lost its soul here. right? This is the battle of the soul of the African National Congress, which also then translates to the battle of the soul of South Africa. And for me, it's political, it's psychological, but it's also very, very spiritual. We must also remember that the oppression that we experienced under colonization and apartheid was an orchestrated spiritual revolution beyond just being a political revolution. It was also psychological. These are issues that Steve Biko speaks about, Ngungi Wationga would speak about, Thomas Sankara speaks about, and many others, right? So I think that sometimes the ANC forgets that at the center of waging this national democratic revolution, they constantly have to remember and connect to their source of spirituality, to their soul of what we call the national democratic revolution, because it is a spiritual exercise beyond the fact that it's political. And I think something has been lost there. You know, Umama Ubaleka Mbete once said at some point that the ANC needs cleansing. Perhaps we need to go back and speak to ancestors and ancestresses, you know, Siopahla in Zulu, something that says, can we please speak and appease our ancestors that we have angered over time? Perhaps this is why we are stuck in this case. It's a case, you know, for lack of a better word, really the ANC has got to go Msamo, which is a sacred space where we need to go and speak to the spirits of Mama Matigizela Mandela, Mama Albertina Sisulu, you know, Mama Boshalet Matleke, and ask and appease to say, can you please assist us here? We are stuck in this particular case. We are losing the soul of the organization in the name of power, in the name of money, in the name of the dollar.
Let's keep it there very quickly, Prof.
I just wanted to say what she's saying about Upahla or Pasa and so on. That has been many times. There is a place called Freedom Park there in Pretoria. At the top there of that mountain, there is something called Isvivani. Even the gods are not happy with us, despite what we are trying to do. Every year, by the way, they do go there. And I was part of that. Even its founding concept, I was part thereof. So
let us go to Freedom Park.
Hold your thoughts. We still have, another round coming. At the top of the hour. For now, though, we're going to hand it back to you, Tsepiso, but just by way of recap, with that credentials report now having been adopted, everyone, of course, looking forward to the constitutional amendments that would need to be made, which are going to inform the, whether in fact there will be additional positions also to be voted for at this conference, Deputy Secretary General, Deputy Treasurer General, and so on. Now, once that is done, approved or not, only then will they then be able to start with the nomination process. That all of that is expected to happen over the next hour, couple of hours or so. But we will be here listening in, keeping track of everything we hear and bringing it to our viewers as soon as we hear whether there is any progress on any of those issues. But for now, I'm going to take it back to you.